Hi everyone, welcome back to a new post today. And today let's discuss about power or energy, and that's about the Indian Energy Week, the very first India Energy Week that's being held at Bengaluru, and at a very apt time when we are really dependent on imports, and we need a lot of investment not only in fossil fuel exploration and production but also for green energy as well. So the Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the very first India Energy Week in Bengaluru, and it's a 3-day event. And it was this major event that he made some very big announcements as well. So the India Energy Week actually aims to attract a lot of investment in the energy sector. Now let us remember that it was the energy sector that played a very major role in deciding the future of various economies and also the world in the very 21st century itself. It was coal that actually spurred the growth of industrial revolution, and many countries who are developed today actually benefited from the coal-based production at that time. It is energy that not only drives the cycles of the atmosphere, but it is energy that also drives the economies as well. And India is now one of the strongest voices in the energy world, let me tell you. So India is being looked up to for clean energy, and also with the climate change in mind, many of the countries and all the countries in the world, I should say, actually are now turning towards clean energy or a mixture or hybrid energy with a mixture of fossil fuel and clean energy, but also keeping a timeline so that they phase out totally fossil fuels. While conventional energy is needed to drive economies, today's quest is actually energy is for clean, climate change friendly growth or sustainable development. And that's how the India Energy Week actually aims to help India. So it wants to attract investments in the India green energy sector and also in the oil and gas exploration. India's energy demand is going to increase phenomenally from now, said Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which is just 5% of the global demand. It's going to become 11% of the global demand. And a brief introduction about this India Energy Week is that it is conducted by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas and also supported by the Federation of Indian Petroleum Industry. It comes at a very critical time when challenges of energy security and also environmental sustainability are impacting long-term transition and also goals. And now there is a path towards decarbonization. So we hear the global norm now to be actually net zero emissions or actually clean energy transition. So as India is moving to be a gas-based economy and it targets to achieve the net zero emissions by 2070, it needs about 60 billion worth investments for the transition. And also India is looking towards many companies to come and invest not only in the green energy but also in the fossil fuel. Because let me remind you that we are still dependent for 80% of our energy on imports, though we have a very good refining capacity. Now, even though the country has made very big strides in the energy sector, India needs a lot of investments to achieve a lot of its goals, not only with regard to energy consumption, but also to spur the manufacturing and the services and the logistics sector, and also to achieve its clean climate change goals. So the Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced 4 major verticals at the India Energy Week that is aiming or the strategy of India in the energy sector. So what are these 4 major verticals that Prime Minister Narendra Modi actually spoke about? Now this includes increasing domestic exploration and production. Though we have a very long coastline, we do not have the capacity to meet our own demands, and therefore we are still dependent on imports. So increasing domestic energy exploration and production, diversification of supplies from all major sources of energy, clean and also conventional, expansion of alternate energy sources like biofuels, ethanol, compressed biogas and solar, and decarbonization through electric vehicles and hydrogen. So I've explained, I've told you the verticals, 4 verticals that government is actually focusing on with regard to the energy sector, which will form the basis for you to understand whatever actions the government is taking with regard to the energy sector. But what are the goals actually of the government of India with regard to the energy sector? What does the government aim at in the energy sector? Let's take a few points and just go about it. So the government is looking at investments in exploration and domestic production, which is very important because I told you all that we are dependent on 80% of imports, and this affects not only the value of the currency but also the inflation. So anything that happens in any part of the world from where we get our supplies impacts India, and that we have already seen in the Russia-Ukraine war, though it also was a positive point because we increased our energy purchases from Russia. And though India is the 4th largest crude oil refining capacity in the world, we are still very dependent on imports for meeting our energy demand. India is focusing on increasing the liquefied natural gas terminal regasification capacity, and for this India is looking for investments. India wants to increase its city-based gas distribution system in the country. India wants to expand its pipeline networks. India wants to increase ethanol-based blended petrol in the country so that it can reduce carbon emissions. So ethanol, which is called as ethyl alcohol, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi also launched the petrol blended 20% ethanol called as E20 at the India Energy Week, and this is touted to be a landmark in helping the country to reduce carbon emissions. So ethanol is a biofuel which is produced from a fermentation of sugar, which is extracted from sugarcane and agriculture waste also like bagasse and paddy straw. Ethanol can be produced from various sources. Ethanol, when blended with petrol, reduces the fossil fuel consumption and also import bills, and also it's a little bit cleaner because it reduces carbon emissions. Government is now supporting the advanced biofuel projects, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to launch. The government is going to launch Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Yojana with a financial assistance of 25,000 crore. Domestic produced ethanol will reduce import dependence, and India plans to now set up on the lines of International Solar Alliance, the International Biofuel Alliance, during the G20 presidency. So we recently had a working group of energy discussion, and now India is moving towards the India International Biofuel Alliance. India wants to achieve 50 gigawatt of energy, clean energy by 2030. So these are some of the goals what actually India is looking to achieve in the energy sector. What about the green energy side now? As I said, that we need energy not only to drive domestic growth but also to achieve a climate change sustainable clean growth. So for that we need hybrid mix of clean energy and fossil fuels, and also India has its own goals with regard to clean energy. So recently India submitted the updated nationally determined contribution which it communicated to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And in that it pronounced its long-term energy goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2070. So this timeline is very important for you to remember. India stands committed to reducing the energy intensity of its GDP by 45% by 2030. And also all the electric power that is produced now, so 50% of it should come from non-fossil fuel by 2030. And also put forward and propagate a healthy and a sustainable path of living through lifestyle for environment or life, which was a new goal added in the updated nationally determined contributions. So the goal now is clean energy. However, let me tell you that India, if we see the goals and also the objectives, it's a mix of both fossil fuels and also clean, because India cannot at once cannot phase out conventional energy or dependence on coal. We are still very much dependent on coal and other conventional fuels for many of our energy needs. So India cannot phase out that at once. That it can be a step-by-step process, and that's why these timelines of achieving the net zero emission by 2070 and other goals by 2030 as well. Apart from clean energy, the major impediment is now the imports, because we are dependent on major imports for our energy needs. And I told you all in the beginning, it affects the Indian rupee and also the inflation in the country. So as of recent, we have seen this effect during the Russia-Ukraine war, but however, this was a blessing in disguise, because now Russia oil was got to India at a very, very cheap price, and now Russia oil constitutes about 28% from just 1% previously in the imports basket. However, even this dependence is not healthy for India, who achieves to be a global superpower. So India needs its own energy needs, and that's how important this Indian Energy Week is. So achieving net zero means reducing the coal usage and other fossil fuels, which needs investments in these areas. And this is the importance of the Indian Energy Week. And we just came to know what are the goals that the government wants to achieve with regard to energy, and what are its objectives and its timeline with regard to clean energy as well. So I really hope that this event brings the much needed investments to India, and we very soon reduce our dependence on imports, because our fuel price for which we use for traveling, etc., will become very, very less, and also the inflation will go down to a massive amount, and if the fuel prices are further reduced. So I hope these points were really helpful to you all, and they did help you to understand the importance of the India Energy Week and government's objectives with regard to the energy sector, and also how we need to depend now both on clean energy and fossil fuels as well, and most importantly, reduce the dependence. So for that, we need money and investments to come in. I hope this was helpful, and if you did like, please comment, share and subscribe, and follow me for daily updates. I'm planning to come up for the preliminary 2023 with the prelims of the last 6 to 8 months. So it will be a once in 3 day a post where I will be giving you the most important prelim points that you need to follow for 2023 from your current affairs from the last 8 months. And do follow me for that. And thank you once again to all who's supporting me. I shall see you in my next post, and until then, as usual, it's happy learning. Bye bye.